Commander Sarah Chen stood at the airlock door of her shuttle, taking deep breaths to calm her nerves. Beyond this door waited the most important meeting of her life. She was Earth's first diplomatic envoy to the planet Zephyria 7, and the fate of millions depended on her success. "You can do this, Commander," said Lieutenant Tom Rodriguez through her helmet communicator. "Just follow the protocol briefing exactly as we practiced." Sarah nodded, though Tom couldn't see her inside the shuttle. She checked her environmental suit one more time. Everything was sealed perfectly. The suit's life support systems hummed quietly, keeping her safe from Zephyria 7's unique atmosphere. The planet's air was breathable for humans, but the pressure was different, and the temperature was much warmer than Earth standard. Opening airlock in 3, 2, 1. Tom counted down. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Bright blue light flooded into the shuttle. Sarah stepped out onto a platform made of some kind of crystal that sparkled under her boots. Before her stretched a magnificent palace that looked like it was carved from a single enormous diamond. Towers rose into the purple sky, each one catching the light of Zephyria 7's twin suns and splitting it into rainbow colors. "Incredible," Sarah whispered. 2 Zephyrian guards stood waiting for her. They were tall and slender, their bodies appearing almost translucent like living glass. Patterns of light moved beneath their skin in waves of blue and green. Sarah had studied the briefing materials, but seeing them in person was completely different. The lights moving through their bodies were not decorations, they were the Zephyrian language itself. The guards bowed their heads slightly. Lights rippled across their forms in a pattern that Sarah's translator chip identified as a formal greeting. She bowed back, trying to remember everything she had learned. "Welcome, human ambassador," one guard said through a small translation device attached to a band around its arm. The Zephyrians could speak human languages, but it was difficult for them. They preferred their light-based communication. "Thank you for receiving me," Sarah replied carefully. "I am honored to be here." The guards gestured for her to follow. They led her through a wide corridor where the walls themselves seemed to glow with soft light. Other Zephyrians moved through the palace, all of them displaying the same translucent appearance. Their skin showed the constant movement of bioluminescent patterns that shifted and changed with their thoughts and emotions. Sarah noticed something that her briefing had mentioned but hadn't quite prepared her for. None of the Zephyrians wore any clothing. Their transparent bodies meant that covering themselves would be like a human wearing a bag over their head. Clothing would hide the light patterns they used to communicate, making them essentially mute. She felt grateful for her environmental suit. At least it gave her something to focus on, besides her nervousness. The guards stopped before a massive door carved with intricate designs. "The Princess Velzara waits within the greeting chamber," the guard explained. "You may enter when ready." Sarah's heart pounded. This was it. Princess Velzara was the key to everything. Earth needed an alliance with Zephyria 7 desperately. The Zephyrians possessed advanced medical knowledge that could cure a terrible plague spreading through Earth's outer colonies. Thousands were dying, and the disease showed no signs of stopping. Only Zephyrian biotechnology could save them. But the Zephyrians were cautious about sharing their knowledge with other species. They had been visited by aliens before, some of whom had tried to steal their technology. Trust had to be earned. Sarah checked her suit one final time, then pressed her hand against the door. It swung open silently. The greeting chamber was beautiful beyond words. The entire room seemed to be made of crystal that caught and reflected light in every direction. A pool of water dominated the center of the room, its surface perfectly still, and standing beside the pool was Princess Velzara. The princess was taller than the guards, and her translucent form seemed to glow from within. Patterns of light moved through her body in elegant waves, purples and blues and soft greens that reminded Sarah of the aurora borealis back on Earth. Sarah stepped forward, beginning to bow as protocol demanded. "Your Highness, I am Commander Sarah Chen of Earth. I bring greetings from..." She stopped. The princess's light patterns had suddenly changed. The gentle blues and purples vanished, replaced by harsh flashes of red and orange. The lights pulsed rapidly, almost violently, through Velzara's body. Sarah's translator chip identified the pattern immediately. Shock, distress, and confusion. Something was terribly wrong. Princess Velsara took a step backward, her arms moving in a gesture that Sarah's cultural training recognized as defensive. More red patterns flashed across the princess's skin, mixing with streaks of dark purple that the translator marked as offense or insult perceived. "Your Highness," Sarah said, confused and alarmed. The princess didn't respond with words. Instead, her light patterns intensified. Two more Zephyrian guards appeared from doors Sarah hadn't noticed before. Their patterns showed orange and yellow alert status. Sarah's mind raced. What had happened? She had followed the protocol exactly as briefed. She had entered respectfully, begun the proper greeting, made no threatening moves. What could have possibly, and then it hit her. The environmental suit. Sarah looked down at her fully covered body, then back at the princess's translucent form. The princess and every other Zephyrian Sarah had seen were naturally unclothed, because clothing would block their bioluminescent communication. It was how they spoke, how they expressed emotion, how they showed honesty and truth, and Sarah had walked in completely covered from head to toe. In human terms, it would be like someone entering a formal meeting wearing a blindfold and earplugs, a clear signal that they considered the other person unworthy of seeing or hearing. "Oh no," Sarah breathed. "Oh no, no, no." The guards moved toward her, their patterns showing increasing agitation. Princess Velsara's lights had shifted to a cold blue that Sarah's translator identified as disappointment and dismissal. One guard reached toward Sarah's arm. "The human ambassador must leave," it said through its translator device. "The greeting has failed. The princess will not see you." Sarah felt her stomach drop. The alliance, the cure for the plague, everything was falling apart before her eyes. Millions of people on Earth's colonies were depending on her, and she had failed them before even speaking 10 words. "Please, wait," Sarah said desperately. "There's been a misunderstanding. I didn't mean—" But the guards were already escorting her toward the door, their light patterns firm and unchanging. Princess Velsara had turned away, her own patterns dimming to almost nothing, the Zephyrian equivalent of ending a conversation. As the guards led her back through the crystal corridor, Sarah's mind worked frantically. There had to be a way to fix this. There had to be a way to make the princess understand that this was a mistake, not an insult. But how could she explain that to someone whose entire culture was built on transparency, when she was trapped inside a suit she couldn't remove? The airlock door appeared ahead. Tom's voice crackled in her helmet. "Commander? How did it go?" Sarah couldn't answer. She was too busy trying to figure out how to save a mission that had died before it truly began. The guards escorted Sarah back through the crystal corridors toward the airlock. Her mind raced with panic. Everything was falling apart. The alliance, the cure, the lives of thousands of people, all of it slipping away because of a cultural misunderstanding that nobody had warned her about. "Please," Sarah said to the guards. "I need to explain. This was a mistake. My people didn't understand. The princess has dismissed you." One guard replied, its light patterns showing orange firmness. "There is nothing more to discuss." Sarah stopped walking. The guards turned to look at her, their patterns shifting to cautious yellow. She made a decision that would either save everything or destroy her career completely. Sarah reached up and unsealed her helmet. "Commander, no!" Tom's voice shouted through the communicator before she pulled it off her head. "The atmospheric pressure, you haven't been properly prepared." The helmet came off with a soft click. Immediately, Sarah felt the difference. The air was thick and warm, pressing against her face like a heavy blanket. Her ears popped painfully from the pressure change. The atmosphere was breathable, but her body wasn't adjusted to it yet. She gasped, feeling her lungs work harder to pull in oxygen. The guards stopped moving. Their light patterns changed from orange to bright silver surprise and confusion. Sarah's face flushed red as her blood vessels expanded in response to the atmospheric pressure. Her skin felt hot, and sweat began to form on her forehead. It was uncomfortable, but she could tolerate it. More importantly, she was no longer completely hidden. "I am sorry," Sarah said, her voice strained from the pressure. "Please, take me back to the princess. I need to make this right. Formus." The guards looked at each other. Patterns of light flickered between them in a rapid conversation Sarah couldn't follow. Finally, one of them gestured back down the corridor. "Come," it said simply. They led her back to the greeting chamber. Sarah focused on breathing steadily, fighting against the discomfort of the unfamiliar atmosphere. Each breath was an effort, but she refused to put her helmet back on. The door opened again. Princess Velzara stood in the same position as before, her back turned to the entrance. But when Sarah entered, the princess's light patterns flickered. She had noticed the change. Velzara turned around slowly. Her patterns shifted from cold blue to curious silver as she saw Sarah's exposed face and red-flushed skin. Sarah bowed deeply, struggling to speak clearly. "Your Highness, I have made a terrible mistake. I did not understand your culture properly. Please forgive me." The princess stepped closer, her translucent form glowing with shifting patterns. She studied Sarah's face with obvious interest. Then she spoke, her voice melodic but strangely accented as she formed human words. "You removed protection," Velzara said slowly. "Why?" "Because I was hiding," Sarah explained, still breathing heavily. "In my culture, we cover ourselves for protection and privacy. But I didn't realize that in your culture, covering myself was like refusing to communicate with you." The princess's patterns shifted again, mixing silver curiosity with softer greens. She gestured to a small device on a nearby pedestal, a translation unit more advanced than the ones the guards wore. "Please," Velzara said. "We speak through this. Easier for both." Sarah walked to the pedestal, grateful for the chance to catch her breath. The princess activated the device, and a holographic interface appeared in the air between them. "My translator failed me," Sarah continued. Speaking into the device, it converted her words into light patterns that the princess could read more naturally. "The briefing materials my people gave me didn't explain the significance of clothing or the lack of it in your culture." Velzara's patterns pulsed with understanding. The translation device converted her bioluminescent language into words Sarah could hear. "Your people sent you without proper knowledge?" the princess asked. "This seems careless." "We're new to meeting other species," Sarah admitted. "We don't have much experience with different cultures. We made assumptions based on our own way of thinking." "That was wrong." The princess circled Sarah slowly, her light patterns contemplative. "Explain your people's way. Why do you hide your bodies?" Sarah thought carefully about how to answer. "On Earth, humans evolved on open plains where we were vulnerable to predators and weather. We learned to cover ourselves for protection from danger and from the elements, heat, cold, rain. Over time, covering our bodies became connected to other ideas too. Privacy, modesty, social status. It's complicated. Fascinating," Velzara said, her patterns brightening with interest. "My people evolved in deep oceans, dark waters where we could not see. We developed these lights," she gestured to the patterns moving through her body, "to communicate, to show truth, to warn of danger. If we covered ourselves, we would be silent. Alone in darkness again." Sarah began to understand. "So when I entered wearing my suit, I thought you were telling me you did not wish to communicate," Velzara finished. "That you found our way of speaking unworthy, disgusting, perhaps." "No," Sarah said quickly. "Not at all. Your people are beautiful. The way you communicate is amazing. I've never seen anything like it." The princess's patterns shifted to warm gold pleasure and satisfaction. But then they darkened slightly to concerned purple. "Your face is very red," Velzara observed. "You are in pain from our atmosphere." Sarah nodded, not wanting to lie. "Yes, but I can tolerate it. I wanted you to see that I'm willing to be transparent, to show you respect." Velzara was quiet for a long moment, her patterns cycling through various colors as she thought. Finally, they settled into a gentle blue-green. "You risked harm to yourself to correct the misunderstanding," the princess said. This shows character. Honor. Perhaps we can begin again. Relief flooded through Sarah. Thank you, Your Highness. I promise I will do better. But there is a problem, Velzara continued, her patterns turning serious. The formal alliance ceremony is in 3 days. It requires both of us to participate in traditional rituals. You cannot wear your protective suit during these rituals, it would still be seen as an insult by my court. But you also cannot survive in our atmosphere for the many hours the ceremony requires. You would become ill or injured. Sarah felt her hope dimming. They had solved one problem, only to discover another. There must be a solution, she said. Some way to honor both our cultures. If there is, I do not know it, Velzara admitted. Her patterns showed genuine regret. And my people are not the only challenge. There are nobles in my court who do not want this alliance. They will use any excuse to end these negotiations. They will say humans cannot be trusted, because you cannot be open with us. Sarah's mind worked rapidly. She thought about the resources available on her shuttle and the orbital station above the planet, where the rest of Earth's diplomatic team waited. Give me these 3 days, Sarah said firmly. Let me work on this problem. Human beings are good at solving impossible problems. It's one of our strengths. Princess Velzara's patterns flickered with what might have been amusement. You are very confident. I have to be, Sarah replied. Too many lives depend on this alliance succeeding. People on my world are dying from a plague. Only your medical knowledge can save them. I won't let them down because of a problem we can solve. The princess studied Sarah for a long moment. Then her patterns brightened to encouraging yellow gold. Very well, Commander Sarah Chen. You have 3 days. I will tell my court that we are reconsidering the human proposal. But if you cannot find a solution, the alliance will end. My people will not accept anything less than true transparency. I understand, Sarah said. Thank you for this chance. As Sarah put her helmet back on and headed toward the airlock, her mind was already racing with possibilities. She needed to contact Dr. Marcus Webb, Earth's best materials engineer. If anyone could solve this impossible problem, it would be him. But 3 days wasn't much time to invent something that had never existed before. The shuttle door closed behind her, and Tom immediately appeared, concern written all over his face. Commander, what happened in there? Are you all right? Sarah sat down heavily in the pilot's chair, exhaustion washing over her. But beneath the tiredness was determination. Get me a direct link to Dr. Webb on the orbital station, she said. And tell him to clear his schedule for the next 72 hours. We have an impossible problem to solve. Tom nodded and moved to the communications console. As he worked, Sarah stared out the shuttle window at the crystal palace gleaming in the light of the twin suns. Somewhere in there, Princess Velzara was waiting to see if humanity could prove itself worthy of trust. Sarah wasn't going to let her down. Dr. Marcus Webb appeared on the communications screen, his tired eyes widening as Sarah explained the situation. He ran a hand through his gray hair, a habit he had whenever facing a difficult problem. Let me make sure I understand, Marcus said slowly. You need a suit that shows your biological functions like the Zephyrians show their bioluminescence, but it also needs to protect you from atmospheric pressure and temperature differences. Exactly, Sarah confirmed. It has to be our version of transparency. Something that shows we're communicating honestly, like they do with their light patterns. Marcus leaned back in his chair aboard the orbital station. Behind him, Sarah could see his laboratory filled with equipment and half-finished projects. He was quiet for a long moment, thinking, "It's impossible," he finally said. Sarah's heart sank. "Marcus, please." "I said it's impossible," Marcus interrupted with a small smile. "I didn't say I wouldn't do it. Impossible just means nobody's done it yet." Relief washed over Sarah. "How long do you need?" "You said 3 days?" Marcus rubbed his chin. "I'll need every minute of that. And I'll need detailed scans of Zephyrian bioluminescence patterns. Can you get those?" "I'll find a way," Sarah promised. Over the next 2 days, Sarah worked harder than she had ever worked in her life. Princess Velzara, intrigued by the human effort, agreed to meet with Sarah for several hours each day. The princess allowed Sarah to scan her light patterns while they talked, but these meetings became more than just data collection. Sarah and Velzara began to truly communicate, learning about each other's worlds and cultures. "Tell me about Earth," Velzara said during their second meeting. The princess sat by the pool in her greeting chamber, her patterns glowing softly in relaxed greens and blues. Sarah, wearing her helmet again to protect herself, pulled up images on her datapad. "Earth is very different from Zephyria 7. We have one sun, not two, and our oceans are filled with salt water, not the mineral-rich water you have here." She showed the princess pictures of Earth's forests, mountains, and cities. Velzara's patterns brightened with fascination. "So much variety," the princess said. "And your people create structures that are not transparent. Buildings with walls that block light completely. We need walls for privacy and protection," Sarah explained. "But we also create windows, transparent sections so light can come through. We need sunlight to be healthy." "Interesting," Velzara mused. "You choose when to be transparent and when to be hidden. It is intentional, not constant like with my people." Sarah nodded. "That's a good way to think about it. We control our transparency." The princess's patterns shifted to curious silver. "What about your art? Do humans create beauty?" "Oh yes," Sarah said enthusiastically. She pulled up images of paintings, sculptures, and architecture, but when she showed a video of a symphony orchestra, Velzara's patterns exploded into brilliant rainbow colors. "What is this?" the princess asked, leaning forward. "Music," Sarah explained. "It's sound arranged in patterns to create emotion and beauty. It's one of our most important art forms." Velzara's patterns pulsed with confusion. "But we do not have this. We have visual art, light sculptures, pattern dances. But organized sound for beauty? This concept is new to me." Sarah had an idea. She pulled out a small harmonica she carried a gift from her grandmother. "May I show you?" The princess gestured agreement. Sarah removed her helmet briefly, took a breath of the heavy atmosphere, and played a simple melody. The notes echoed through the crystal chamber, bouncing off the walls in unexpected harmonies. Velzara stood perfectly still, her light patterns frozen. Then, slowly, they began to pulse in rhythm with the music. Waves of color moved through her body in time with Sarah's notes. When Sarah finished and quickly put her helmet back on, the princess remained silent for a long moment. Velzara's patterns showed emotions the translator couldn't identify. "That was beautiful, and strange, and wonderful. Your people create meaning from invisible vibrations in air? That's one way to describe it," Sarah said, smiling. "Fascinating," the princess said softly. "You show me that there are ways to communicate beauty that my people never imagined. Perhaps different forms of honesty can exist together." Number 4. Awazing the future. Awazing the scene. Awazing the future. 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 These conversations gave Sarah hope, but they also made the pressure greater. She was building a real friendship with Velzara, and she didn't want to fail her new friend. Meanwhile, aboard the orbital station, Marcus worked without sleep. He sent Sarah updates every few hours. "I'm using smart fabric technology," he explained in one message. "Microscopic sensors embedded in flexible material. They'll read your vital signs, heart rate, neural activity, body temperature, emotional stress responses, and display them?" Sarah asked. "Exactly. The fabric will show the data as flowing patterns on its surface, like the Zephyrian's light patterns, but based on human biology instead of bioluminescence." It sounded perfect. But there were problems. "The power supply keeps failing," Marcus reported on day 2. "The sensors draw too much energy. I've burned out 3 prototypes already." Sarah felt anxiety building. "Can you solve it?" Working on it, Marcus said, his voice strained with exhaustion. I'm trying a bioreactive power system. It uses your own body heat and movement to generate electricity. If it works, the suit will power itself as long as you're wearing it. The hours ticked by. Sarah spent her time learning Zephyrian pattern language from Velzara. The princess proved to be a patient teacher, showing Sarah how different colors meant different emotions and concepts. Red with orange is shock or alarm, Velzara explained, making the patterns appear on her skin. Blue with green is calm and friendly. Purple alone is sadness. Purple with red is anger. Sarah practiced reading the patterns, though she knew she would never be fluent. But the effort mattered. Velzara's patterns glowed warm gold whenever Sarah successfully identified a pattern. The princess was pleased. You try very hard to understand us, Velzara observed. This is good. This is what alliance means. Effort to understand. On the morning of the third day, the day of the ceremony, Marcus finally sent the message Sarah had been waiting for. It's done. I'm sending it down to the surface now. But Sarah, I haven't had time to test it properly. I don't know if it will work for the full ceremony duration. It'll work, Sarah said with more confidence than she felt. It has to. The package arrived at Sarah's shuttle an hour before the ceremony was scheduled to begin. Tom helped her open the sealed container. Inside was a bodysuit, unlike anything Sarah had ever seen. The material looked almost alive, shimmering with subtle iridescent colors. Tiny circuits were woven throughout the fabric in beautiful patterns that looked almost decorative. It's beautiful, Tom said quietly. Sarah picked it up. The material was soft and lightweight, flowing like water through her fingers. Instructions from Marcus were included. The suit will calibrate to your body within 5 minutes of putting it on, Sarah read aloud. Once calibrated, it will display your biological data in real-time patterns across the surface. Heart rate shows as pulsing rhythms. Neural activity creates wave patterns. Emotional states generate color shifts. It's designed to be humanity's version of Zephyrian honesty. Tom looked worried. Commander, what if it fails during the ceremony? What if the power system doesn't work? Sarah folded the suit carefully. Then we'll deal with that problem when it happens. But right now, this is our best chance. Our only chance. She looked at the clock. 30 minutes until the ceremony. Help me get ready, Tom, Sarah said. It's time to show the Zephyrians what human transparency looks like. As she prepared to put on the revolutionary suit, Sarah thought about everything that had led to this moment. The initial disaster, the cultural misunderstanding, the desperate scramble for a solution, and most importantly, the unexpected friendship with Princess Velzara. Sarah realized that this alliance had become about more than just saving lives from the plague, though that remained critically important. It had become about proving that different species, with completely different ways of existing and communicating, could find common ground. It was about showing that transparency came in many forms. The suit's material felt cool against her skin as she put it on. Within seconds, she felt a tingling sensation as the sensors activated and began reading her biology. Looking down, she saw patterns beginning to appear on the fabric, flowing lines of light that pulsed with her heartbeat. It was working. You look amazing, Commander, Tom said, his voice filled with awe. Sarah took a deep breath, watching as the suit registered the change in her respiration and displayed it as gentle waves across her chest. Let's go meet a princess, she said. Sarah walked through the Crystal Palace corridors wearing Marcus's remarkable suit. With each step, patterns of light flowed across the fabric like living art. Her heartbeat created rhythmic pulses of blue light. Her breathing made gentle waves ripple across her chest. Even her thoughts seemed to generate subtle color shifts as her neural activity was translated into visual patterns. The Zephyrian guards who escorted her stopped repeatedly to stare. Their own light patterns showed amazement, bright silver mixed with curious green. The human has become like us, one guard said to the other in their light language. Sarah's translator chip caught the meaning, but Sarah felt nervous. Her anxiety was probably visible on the suit as well, showing up as faster pulses and warmer colors. There was no hiding her emotions now. Just as the Zephyrians couldn't hide theirs, The great ceremonial hall was filled with Zephyrians. Hundreds of them stood in organized rows, their translucent bodies creating a sea of shifting lights. The sight was breathtaking. The combined glow of so many bioluminescent beings made the crystal hall shine like the inside of a star. At the far end of the hall, Princess Velzara waited on a raised platform. When she saw Sarah enter, her patterns blazed with brilliant gold joy and approval. Sarah walked down the center aisle. Every Zephyrian eye followed her. She could see their patterns changing as they noticed her suit, surprise, curiosity, fascination. Some showed warm colors of approval, others displayed cooler, more skeptical shades. Commander Sarah Chen of Earth, Princess Velzara's voice rang out through translation devices placed around the hall. You honor us with your presence and your remarkable adaptation. Sarah bowed deeply. The honor is mine, Your Highness. I hope this shows my people's sincere desire to communicate openly with yours. Velzara's patterns pulsed with warm acknowledgement, but then she gestured to several Zephyrians standing to her left. Their patterns were dark, purple, and cold blue, hostile colors. These are the members of my High Council, Velzara explained. They will oversee this ceremony to ensure all traditions are properly followed. One of the council members stepped forward. He was older than the others, his translucent form slightly dimmer. His patterns showed stern orange and formal red. I am Council Elder Threshkai, he announced. Before this alliance can proceed, the human ambassador must complete the traditional trial of understanding. This is our ancient custom for all new allies. Sarah's suit registered her sudden spike in heart rate, displaying it as rapid pulses. She hadn't been told about any trial. Princess Velzara's patterns flickered with surprise and concern. Elder Threshkai, this trial is not typically required for. It is required for all allies, Threshkai interrupted firmly, unless the council votes to make an exception, and we have not voted to do so. The other council members' patterns showed agreement. Sarah realized this was a deliberate obstacle. These were the nobles Velzara had warned her about, the ones who opposed the alliance. What does this trial involve? Sarah asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Threshkai gestured, and two Zephyrians brought forward a large crystal panel. When they activated it, complex patterns of light began moving across its surface in intricate designs. The patterns shifted and changed, creating what looked like a three-dimensional puzzle of pure light. This is the depths riddle, Threshkai explained. It has been used for thousands of years to test understanding between our people. You must solve it by manipulating the light patterns into their correct configuration. Sarah stared at the puzzle. The patterns moved in ways that made no sense to her human eyes. They weren't just visual, they were based on the Zephyrian language, on concepts that only beings who thought in bioluminescence could understand. This is impossible, Sarah said quietly. I can't think in light patterns the way your people do. My brain doesn't work that way. Exactly, Threshkai said, his patterns showing satisfied purple. Which proves that humans cannot truly understand us. Therefore, alliance is impossible. The hall erupted with light pattern conversations. Some Zephyrians showed angry red, others confused yellow, still others approving green for Threshkai's logic. Sarah's suit displayed her racing pulse, her elevated stress hormones, her rapid breathing. Everyone could see her panic. There was no hiding it. She looked at Princess Velzara. The princess's patterns showed deep purple sadness mixed with orange frustration. Velzara was angry at her council, but she couldn't simply override them. Politics bound even royalty. Then something unexpected happened. Princess Velzara's patterns suddenly went dark, almost completely black. The entire hall fell silent. Zephyrians gasped, their patterns showing shock. A royal dimming one's light was a sign of profound disagreement, almost rebellion. It meant the princess was questioning her own people's actions, showing doubt in their fairness. This trial is unjust, Velzara said, her voice clear despite her darkened patterns. The human cannot solve a puzzle designed for minds unlike hers. It proves nothing except that we are different, which we already knew. Threshkai's patterns flared angry red. Your Highness, you dishonor yourself by dimming before the human. You side with an alien over your own people. I side with fairness, Velzara responded. And with the truth that different does not mean inferior. Sarah's mind raced as she watched this confrontation. Her suit showed her emotional turmoil, fear, hope, determination, all mixing together in swirling patterns across the fabric. And then she understood. The trial wasn't really about solving their puzzle. It was about showing what humanity could offer that the Zephyrians couldn't. It was about proving that difference had value. Sarah reached into a small pouch at her belt and pulled out her grandmother's harmonica. The small metal instrument gleamed in the light of hundreds of Zephyrian bodies. Elder Threshkai, Sarah said loudly, her voice carrying through the hall. You're right that I cannot solve your light puzzle. But I would like to offer something in return. A human puzzle, a human way of communicating truth and emotion. Threshkai's patterns showed suspicious orange. What trickery is this? No trick, Sarah said. Just a different kind of honesty. She raised the harmonica to her lips and began to play. The melody started soft and sad. Sarah thought about her grandmother who had given her this harmonica, about the people dying from the plague on Earth's colonies, about the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. The music carried through the crystal hall, and something magical happened. The crystals themselves resonated with the sound, amplifying it and creating harmonics that layered over Sarah's simple melody. The Zephyrians stood frozen, their patterns flickering with confusion and wonder. They had never experienced music before, organized sound meant to convey emotion without words or light. Sarah played on, and her suit responded to her emotional state. As she poured her feelings into the music, patterns flowed across the suit's surface. The sensors read her elevated heart rate, the changes in her breathing, the neurochemical responses in her brain as she connected with the music emotionally. The suit displayed all of it, a visual representation of how music affected her human biology. It showed the memories surfacing in her neural activity. It showed the emotions flooding her system. It showed everything the music meant to her. Sarah transitioned the melody from sadness to hope. She thought about Princess Velzara's kindness, about Marcus working without sleep to create the suit, about the possibility of alliance and friendship between species. The music swelled, the crystal hall amplifying it into something grand and beautiful, and her suit blazed with corresponding patterns, hope showing as bright yellows, determination as steady oranges, affection as soft pinks. When the final note faded, silence filled the hall. Then Princess Velzara's patterns exploded into rainbow brilliance, every color at once, showing emotions so complex they couldn't be named. Magnificent, the princess whispered. Other Zephyrians began to glow brighter as well. Their patterns showed awe, confusion, joy, curiosity, dozens of emotions mixing together. Even Threshkai's hostile patterns had softened to uncertain yellow. Sarah lowered the harmonica. This is music, she explained. It's how humans communicate feelings that we can't put into words. Or, she gestured to the Zephyrians, or into light. We create meaning in sound. We build beauty from what you cannot see. She turned slowly, letting everyone see her suit's patterns still flowing with the residual emotions from her performance. You asked me to solve a puzzle designed for minds like yours, Sarah continued. I couldn't do it because I'm human, not Zephyrian. But that's exactly the point. I offer you something you don't have, a different way of understanding the universe. A different kind of honesty. Sarah walked closer to the crystal panel showing the depth's riddle. She gestured to it. You solve problems by illuminating them, by making everything visible. Humans solve problems differently. We feel our way through darkness. We create meaning in empty spaces. We find beauty in silence and sound. We build understanding from what cannot be lit up. She turned to face Elder Threshkai directly. I cannot be Zephyrian. I will never think in light the way you do. But I can be human and show you perspectives you've never imagined. Isn't that more valuable than mimicking what you already have? The ceremonial hall remained silent after Sarah's words. Hundreds of Zephyrian eyes watched her, their light patterns flickering with thoughts and emotions too complex for her translator to fully interpret. Elder Threshkai stood motionless, his patterns cycling through different colors: purple doubt, orange resistance, yellow uncertainty. Finally, he spoke. "The human makes an interesting argument," he admitted slowly. "But words are easy. How do we know this different perspective has real value? What proof can you offer?" Sarah took a deep breath. Her suit registered it immediately, showing gentle waves across her chest. She had one chance to make this work. "Your Highness," Sarah addressed Princess Velzara, "you told me your people evolved in deep oceans, that you developed bioluminescence to communicate in darkness. Let's command. When they haps a stomp side. Let's command." "This is correct," Velzara confirmed, her patterns showing curious green. "Then you understand darkness." Sarah continued. "You understand what it means to be unable to see, to be lost, to be alone in the deep, where no light reaches." The Zephyrians' patterns shifted to somber blues and purples. Clearly, this touched something deep in their cultural memory. "Humans also know darkness," Sarah said softly. "We evolved under skies that turned black every night. We learned to navigate by stars we could barely see. We built fires to push back the darkness, created stories to give meaning to what we couldn't illuminate. We became experts at finding our way through what we cannot light up." She walked to the crystal panel showing the unsolved depths riddle. "This puzzle requires thinking in light. But what about problems that cannot be solved by illumination alone? What about challenges where light reveals nothing useful?" Elder Threshkai's patterns showed skeptical orange. "Such as?" Sarah turned to Princess Velzara. "Your Highness, may I ask, why did you seek alliance with Earth? What problem were you hoping to solve?" Velzara's patterns dimmed slightly with concern. "Our scientists discovered a cosmic radiation wave approaching our star system. It will arrive in approximately 50 of your years. The radiation will not harm our planet or our bodies, but it will interfere with bioluminescence." Gasps rippled through the hall. Many Zephyrians showed shocked red patterns. "My people will lose our ability to communicate," Velzara continued, her voice heavy with worry. "We will be trapped in darkness, unable to speak to each other, for at least 10 years while the radiation passes." My scientists searched for a solution, but found none. Then we detected Earth's radio signals communication through invisible waves. We hoped humans might teach us alternative ways to speak when light fails us. Sarah's heart pounded, and her suit displayed the rapid pulses for all to see. This changed everything. The alliance wasn't just about Earth needing Zephyrian medical knowledge. The Zephyrians needed humanity too. "You need to learn how to communicate in darkness," Sarah said. "And humanity has been doing exactly that for our entire existence." She pulled out her datapad and quickly pulled up information. "Humans use sound for communication, spoken language that works in complete darkness. We use touch-written symbols we can read with our fingers even when we cannot see. We use radio waves that travel through space invisibly. We even use organized patterns of silence, what we call Morse code, to send messages." The Zephyrians' patterns showed intense interest, bright silvers and greens filling the hall. "When your bioluminescence fails," Sarah continued, "these human methods will still work. We can teach you to speak with sound. We can help you develop technology that sends messages through invisible waves. We can show you how to maintain society and connection even when trapped in darkness." Princess Velzara's patterns blazed brilliant gold. "This is exactly what we need. The human offers us survival," but Elder Threshkai held up a hand. His patterns remained cautious. "Perhaps. But how do we know human methods will work for Zephyrian biology? We are not built like you." "That's a fair question," Sarah acknowledged. "Which is why the alliance must go both ways. You teach us your medical knowledge to cure our plague. We teach you our darkness communication methods. But more than that, we work together to adapt human methods to Zephyrian needs. We combine your scientific understanding of light and biology with our experience in navigating darkness." She gestured to her suit, its patterns still flowing with her emotions and biological responses. This suit proves it can be done. Dr. Webb combined human technology with understanding of Zephyrian communication. He created something new, something neither species had before. That's what real alliance means, not one species copying the other, but both creating something better together. The hall erupted in light-pattern conversations. Zephyrians debated among themselves, their patterns flashing rapidly. Sarah watched anxiously as her suit displayed her elevated stress levels. Elder Threshkai conferred with the other council members. Their patterns mixed and swirled as they discussed. Finally, Threshkai turned back to face Sarah. "The human has shown wisdom," he announced. "She understands that difference is not weakness, but strength. She offers us something we desperately need: knowledge of surviving in darkness, and she asks for something we can provide: medical knowledge to save her people." His patterns shifted to formal but accepting blue-green. "I withdraw my objection to the alliance. Let it be recorded that humanity has passed the true test, not by mimicking what we are, but by proving their unique value." Cheers erupted through the hall, at least the Zephyrian equivalent. Light patterns blazed in brilliant golds and joyful yellows. The sound of hundreds of Zephyrians vocalizing their approval filled the crystal chamber. Princess Velzara descended from her platform and approached Sarah. The princess's patterns showed warmth and genuine friendship. "You have done something remarkable, Commander Sarah Chen," Velzara said. "You turned a disaster into triumph. You showed us that transparency takes many forms, and that honesty can exist in different languages." Sarah bowed respectfully. "I had help, Your Highness. Dr. Webb, who created this suit, Lieutenant Rodriguez, who supported me. And you, for giving me a second chance when you could have simply sent me away." "Lever, this is what alliance means," Velzara said warmly. "Supporting each other, learning from each other, creating together what neither could create alone." The formal ceremony proceeded after that. Sarah and Princess Velzara signed the alliance documents, Sarah with human writing, Velzara with a light signature that the treaty crystal recorded permanently. As part of the agreement, Zephyrian medical teams would immediately share the cure for Earth's plague. Human linguistics experts and communication engineers would come to Zephyria 7 to begin teaching alternative communication methods. But the alliance included something else too, something Sarah and Velzara had discussed privately. "I propose we create the Interspecies Cultural Exchange Institute," Princess Velzara announced to the assembled crowd. "A permanent organization dedicated to helping different species understand each other. Humans and Zephyrians will work together to study communication, culture, and cooperation. We will help prevent future misunderstandings between species who meet for the first time." The proposal was approved unanimously. 3 weeks later, Sarah stood in the new institute's headquarters, a building designed with both human and Zephyrian architecture. Parts were transparent crystal, like Zephyrian structures. Parts had solid walls with windows like human buildings. It was a perfect blend of both cultures. Dr. Marcus Webb had arrived from the orbital station, along with a team of Earth scientists. They worked alongside Zephyrian researchers, combining knowledge from both worlds. "We've already made progress," Marcus reported excitedly. "The Zephyrians are learning to speak human languages. It's difficult for them, but they're incredibly motivated, and we're developing new translation devices that work even in total darkness." Princess Velzara approached, her patterns showing happy gold. She had been practicing human speech and was getting better at it. "Sarah," the princess said carefully, pronouncing the name with effort, "I want to show you something." She led Sarah to a laboratory where Zephyrian scientists worked with human audio equipment. One young Zephyrian stood before a microphone, trying to speak. "Hello," the Zephyrian said slowly. The word was rough and awkward, but understandable. "Hello," Sarah replied, smiling broadly. "That's wonderful." The young Zephyrian's patterns flashed excited yellow. Nearby, a human researcher was practicing reading Zephyrian light patterns, her face scrunched in concentration. "We learn from each other," Velzara said, her patterns warm. "This is the future. Different species, different ways of being, all working together." Sarah nodded, feeling emotion well up inside her. Her suit, she still wore Marcus's creation for official functions, displayed her feelings as gentle waves of pink and gold. "You know," Sarah said thoughtfully, "when I first entered your greeting chamber and everything went wrong, I thought I had destroyed any chance of alliance. I thought the cultural difference was too great to overcome. But you were wrong," Velzara said. "The difference was not a wall. It was a bridge. It forced us to truly communicate, to truly understand each other. If everything had been easy, we might never have learned how valuable our differences are." Sarah smiled. "My grandmother used to say that the best relationships come from the hardest beginnings." "Wise human," Velzara said, her patterns glowing with affection. In the distance, Sarah could see through the windows to where human ships were landing. They carried medical supplies sent from Zephyria 7, the cure for the plague. Soon, the dying would be healed. Families would be reunited. Colonies would survive. And it had all started with a misunderstanding, a mistake, and two people willing to look past their differences to find common ground. "Come," Velzara said, gesturing toward the exit. "We have a meeting with the cultural exchange students. 20 young humans and 20 young Zephyrians will begin the first mixed-species education program today." As they walked together through the institute, a human and a Zephyrian, side by side, Sarah reflected on how far they had come. She had entered a greeting chamber and found an alien princess in her natural state, causing shock and offense through ignorance. But from that disaster had grown something beautiful. Proof that different forms of honesty could coexist. That transparency came in many forms. And that the greatest achievements came from embracing difference rather than fearing it. The alliance between Earth and Zephyria 7 would save millions of lives. But more importantly, it would prove to the galaxy that different species could truly understand each other if they were willing to try. Sarah looked at her suit, watching the patterns flow across its surface as her emotions shifted between contentment, pride, and hope for the future. "Different kinds of transparency," she murmured. "What did you say?" Velzara asked, her patterns curious. "Just thinking," Sarah replied, smiling, "about how nakedness, whether physical or emotional, can mean something completely different depending on who you are. But honesty is universal." Aft, Princess Velzara's patterns blazed with understanding and agreement. Together, they walked into the future they had built, human and alien. Transparent in their own ways. United in purpose. The end.